Hello, listeners, and welcome to KMUZ's Willamette Wake Up Show's Girly Pop Politics with me, your host, Jane Tichenal. Today, we are joined by CM Hall, Executive Director of Emerge Oregon, where they champion Democratic women to run for local and state office. They have played a pivotal role in some of Oregon's successful elections, from Julie Fahey, current Speaker of the House, to Leslie Munoz of House District 22, and now recently helping Vanessa Nordike in her Salem mayoral election. Today, we are talking about how we can break barriers when it comes to stepping into local politics and why women are ready to run for office. CM Hall, welcome to Girly Pop Politics.
Thank you. Thanks, Jane. Really nice to be with you.
So recently, you were on a really fantastic episode that I want to shout out quickly. Adam Davis, host of
Mhm.
The Detour. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful interview, incredibly inspiring. You're really easy to like connect with and listen to. And so I really just wanted to plug that and make sure that folks go listen to that episode.
Thank you. I didn't know that that was on my bucket list, but it is now checked off of the bucket list. I feel like Adam Davis is such a consummate professional listener and interviewer that when I was asked to be on the detour, I didn't have words. I just was completely humbled to be a part of that. And I love the work that Oregon Humanities does. So thank you.
The national news right now is extremely overwhelming, and frankly, it's hard to look away. And yet, we know local politics holds an extremely important part in it all. Can you explain the power of local politics and the impact it has on our daily lives? Like, why should people spend more time engaging in local politics than watching national news?
Local politics is where you can have the most impact. Local politics is where you can have the greatest influence. Local politics is where you know the people who are directly making policy decisions that are going to influence and impact your daily life, whether it's the cost of your water, whether it is the cost of your trash or the routes that your trash takes after it leaves your home. The fact that you are going to have a new park that is going to be in your neighborhood or not. Those are the things that we think of or maybe don't think of, right? When we think of local politics, that is what is going to impact your everyday. That's what you think about, right? Like, where are your trails and your hikes? Where are you wanting to make sure that you have safe streets and lighting so that you can walk in the evening when you come home from work? Those are things that are local, right? All politics is local, is the thing that you hear. That is what people really are embroiled in, right? On the everyday. Yes, it can be very overwhelming and very heavy to think about the international news, the national news. And I'm not saying look away from it. I think you have to recognize how it does essentially like impact the local. Feels like impact is a recurring theme here. And where you can do the most is the local level.
A very recent example that you can speak on, in Newport, there was a potential for an ice facility to be built there, but like very recently, it came out in a report that the inquiry to buy the land was pulled. City Council member Steve Hickman said this, maybe somebody thought, oh, it's a small place, it's rural, they're probably quiet, we can overpower them, we've been underestimated. That quote honestly like gives me chills, truly like chills when I read that. So talk to me about what it feels like to see a small town beat a Goliath. Like, how did you guys tackle this issue?
When I first got a call about this issue, it was from someone who worked at the state ACLU saying, "Hey, have you heard anything about this?" And I had not, and I was completely thinking, this has got to be a rumor. There's just no way there's any truth to this. And everything was like very hush hush. I think they were not wanting, whoever they had heard it from was not wanting to go public. And so they weren't sure if anything was really real about it. And within a week, we had called a public city council meeting because we needed to just kind of air this out, right? The news broke, we needed to talk about it. And while the city council wasn't saying, hey, everyone, do you want to have an ICE detention facility here? We needed to address it. And we needed to also express where our city council's position was. Not that we vote in lockstep, not that we are all one brain. However, on this issue, we were aligned, and we had originally thought we were going to come at it from, let's hear from the community and then let's bring up our position. And I had actually said, I think we need to talk about our position first, because I think it's going to let some of the steam out of the room. If they think that we are on board with this in any way, shape, or form, that's going to even more like just inflame where people are coming from. So we changed kind of the tactic there and just said from the outset, like, we're not in favor of this. We didn't start this. We have no idea why this is coming here, why people are starting to sniff around Newport, why the helicopter has left, why they're looking at this field-based operation where the helicopter has been residing at the airport. And, when we put that word out about this city council meeting, typically a town of our size maybe has a few people in the audience, unless there's some hot issue, and maybe we might get a dozen people on that. But we had over 800 people come to our city council meeting. It drew the Portland television networks, every media source. It made national news. It made international news. The fact that like this just everyone came, and we were stunned by this. It was palpable. It was felt county wide, beyond wide. I think people were so fearful about what this could mean, how this would really just shape and reshape our local community. But to have every single person come and speak and testify and say, don't do this, not here. What message would this send? I think that was a very clear communication that there was just no way you could really go forward. Now, we don't actually know that this is a quote done deal or dead deal. We still have some concerns that that this is just a postponed situation. We're not certain. So we can't actually like exhale. There's still potentially some rumblings, but for now, it has been something that the federal government is saying, like, we're no longer looking at Newport. So they say. So we're cautiously optimistic. And we do think that the huge turnout was definitely something that was a reflection, one, that our community really does come together on something that they felt like was a value statement, right? That was a beautiful thing to see.
Powerful and moving and such a great testament to people power. Like, if you feel like your voice does not matter, I assure you it does. And when you bring your friend and your neighbor and that person across the road and the person you see at the grocery store, collectively, it makes a difference. And, there's a clear pipeline from local to state to federal politicians. Like, they all had to start somewhere. So, where can a person start if they've never really engaged with politics or they have a really surface level knowledge of politics? Like, what actions can they take to start to feel a little bit more comfortable?
I think it really is important to think about, what issues are you concerned about? What issues motivate you? Is it the local issues? Is it uh, issues around water? Is it issues around your library? Is it issues around fire protection? Like there are so many different special districts that people don't necessarily think about, that are in your local community, that people don't necessarily always run for, or people thinking about, like local library boards, rural fire districts, rural school boards, right? Also, and soil and water conservation. And yes, city council county commission, state legislature. There's so many different types of office, but it really does depend on like what are the issues that you care about. Like I was talking with someone last week, and they are someone who's a nurse practitioner, and they work in school-based health clinics, and they were thinking, oh, they were going to run for a school board, and then they started to look at it more, and they're like, actually that's not the race I want to run for. And they were thinking about pivoting to a legislative race. That felt more like they want to make health policy. That felt more like the route for them. Great, I'm so glad they know that, right? They're passionate. They definitely have something inside them, and they're like, this is the direction I want to go because this is what I really care about. So you really have to kind of drill down on like what are the issues they really care about. Do you want to make sure that like we're looking at how we're creating more parks or making sure that our local community is safer and that our streets and our sidewalks are clear and ADA accessible and things like that, right? Like those are issues that you really do kind of like work on a local level to address. That's really important to understand about yourself. Some of this is also about time commitment. What do you have the time and ability to do? Are you juggling a full-time job and family priorities and commitments and other volunteer commitments? Some of that, really can also be a juggle. So is your volunteer commitment something that you can also add on running for office and then holding an elected office? Those are some of the things you have to also weigh and take into account.
Listeners, if you're just tuning in, this is Girly Pop Politics on KMUZ's Willamette Wake Up Show, talking with Sam Hall, Executive Director of Emerge Oregon. So, what I'm hearing is, right, it's really important for people to really identify their values and identify their skill sets and what are they willing to do? How much time can they prioritize? I want to dig a little bit deeper and focus on young people and people in minority groups for a second. So, in Kaiser, for example, we have very few young people and even fewer minority groups who are represented at the city level. And it's obviously a conversation, right, that many people are having. We kind of spoke about this, but what are the barriers that you often hear from folks who are running for office? Beyond that, despite those fears, women on the other side of the win, okay, do they still have those fears and was it worth it to them to overcome?
That's a really great question. What I will say is that we talk, and you mentioned that I work for Emerge Oregon, and we are really working to reshape political structures. We want our systems of government to be more representative, to look more like who the people are. And when you think about eligible voters, that over 60% of eligible voters out there represent this kind of group of people that are essentially what you would call the new American majority. And what I would consider in the new American majority, what we classify in that group are people who are Black, Brown, and Indigenous, young people under the age of 35, lesbian, gay, bi, trans, queer, and intersex folks, right? And unmarried people, right? So all of that kind of are in the population of people who are in the new American majority. So essentially the majority of people, right? So I don't know if I'm seeing a lot of them in elected office. Like if you count all of that. Now that's not necessarily all the young, but we want more young people, right? We want more people who are in those populations in elected office. And Emerge likes to say that on average, it takes like 7 times that you have to like plant the seed, encourage people to run for office. Women are by and large juggling so many different responsibilities in their life. They might be juggling domestic priorities at home, maybe kids, maybe older parents that they are doing caregiving for, and maybe children with disabilities, right? Like there's just so many different things that they're also taking care of in terms of domestic priorities. Maybe they also work from home, right? Or they work outside of the home, but they're also doing those things in the home. And then they're like also maybe doing community service, volunteer engagement, and work, also just so many different things that are already in their minds. And so like to think about adding like running for office, whew, that's something you got to plant multiple times. Many different people kind of have to come at that and say, like, hey, you're already doing so many great things. Like you're volunteering at your church, you're leading this, da, 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 all these different things. Like you're running the neighborhood association, you're doing the gardening club, you're like a part of the parent teacher association. Like you might want to think about running for office. Like you're really involved in this one issue about making sure that street lights are on by this time every night so that kids can ride their bikes home or just whatever the issue is, right? Like you're so involved, like just making sure that people are thinking about it. Like we really have to like continue to like plant that seed with people, make sure we encourage people, and we have to do it young, right? Like we don't necessarily like have to look at a certain demographic of people. Like we can do this when people are 18, 19, 20, because we do need all the ages and all the people to be thinking about running for office, right? There's not one particular quote perfect age when people are ready to run. And it's not when people are like retired and they've done everything else. Like, yes, we absolutely want those people. We want that lived experience, but we also want people who are just new and fresh in like the world and haven't necessarily had all of those things, on their resume yet. So I'm very much in the like cheerleading camp of encourage everyone all the time to run. And so I mentioned that 7 times kind of like average. And you asked me about like, we don't see a lot of representation in Salem and Salem Keizer area. And I'll tell you, I'm from Salem. I'm a proud graduate of North Salem High School. I went to Chemeketa Community College and I graduated from Western Oregon University. I have Salem area roots and I love that community very much. And I agree with you. Like, I want to see more representation in your community. Uh, so I would say, like, you have to start now with the people that you know that are your neighbors right now, the people that are your friends' kids right now. Like to start, if they're involved with student government in high school, tell them. If they are involved with student government, encourage them to run for student government, right? Those aren't super competitive elections, oftentimes. And what I would just say is like, we say the 7 times, but if you look at like the like subset of people of color, it's often more like 21 times that we say like you have to encourage and more people of color more times because there's so many other layers to like thinking about running for office, ways that we are doing community care and really behaving more in a collectivist culture fashion that have to be considered. And there are real costs to running when you are a person of color that you have to weigh. The Oregon Futures Lab organization put out this really wonderful yet sobering report where they collected stories from folks who are people of color who have been in elected office and said like what was your experience running, what supports did you not have that you needed. And this is a really important report that people should go on their website and read. And they talked about the different types of costs that people have had to kind of like calculate and consider. And I share it with our emerge class members who need to just kind of think about like if you are white, you should know this because people who are people of color are running for office, but they are also running for office with all these other considerations potentially. And how can you leverage your privilege to support them? And also like just know that like we need to continue to like lift up people. So there's a lot to consider when we're trying to support people running for office for sure.
And there could be so many different leaders amongst us. And I love that you really just offer this piece of encouragement, like seeing those skills and that leadership within people, seeing that confidence and bravery and ability to stand up and speak out. Recently, Salem Keizer School District had a student-led walkout, and about 2,000 students walked from their high schools to the state capitol, and it like brings me to tears, honestly, thinking about it. But so, talking a little bit more specifically about Emerge, right? So, we're encouraging people to run, they're really thinking about it. So, Emerge has a lot of different resources to help women decide if the time is now, right? And sort of the nuts and bolts of running a campaign. So, talk to me about like steps forward and some of the other training opportunities that you guys offer. And I believe I saw some opportunities also for Black women in leadership.
Yes, Emerge is actually a an application program. Like you have to apply to be accepted into it, and it's an 80-hour program. We train folks on all different aspects of running a campaign. We feel very confident that every leader who applies for the program is going to be ready day one to govern. And there is this language that people don't necessarily know about how to run for office, right? That is a whole different kind of thing. So we really want to train people on how to run a campaign. And how to run a campaign is just all new, right? And so how are you like learning how to speak publicly? There are different ways that women speak than men speak, and how do you speak confidently? How do you speak where you're also looking people in the eye? How do you speak with shorter, confident sentences with periods at the end of the sentences? How do you learn how to fundraise and ask people for money for you? Right? A lot of people are like, oh, I don't know if I can ask people for money. That's very intimidating and tough. Like, I can ask people for money for a jogathon or for a bake sale, but if you want me to ask you for money with a comma in it, whew, that feels very, nerve wracking. And we ask people to do that. And we ask people to like believe in themselves and then ask people for money. We ask people or we train people on media and messaging for their campaign, right? And we train people on how to write their stump speech, that 2 minute, like, tell me why I should believe in you and vote for you and hook me with your story about what is going to inspire me to like go and cast my ballot for you. We talk to people about how to run their voter contact plan and go out there in the field and talk to voters and knock on doors and phone bank, although we don't answer the phone anymore and I get that, but text bank and just really try to be on top of communication with voters. And we talked to because Emerge is specifically a program to train Democrats, Democratic women, and non binary leaders. We are very committed to our relationship with labor and making sure that Democrats really understand that relationship is very pivotal. And we want to make sure that our folks in our program understand that different labor groups have different labor issues and making sure that our folks know those issues. And then we talk to people about equity and justice and making sure that people really have a common understanding and fluency around how they're going to run their campaigns with integrity and understand what power means, what privilege means, what oppression means, and how different groups have been historically marginalized, underrepresented, and what we can do in these systems of power to work to make those systems more equitable. So those are some of what we work to teach and train on in our program.
Someone's ability to be a leader and run for office is not far away. Like people are waiting to help you and they want to. So, in honor of Women's History Month, I want to spend just a little time talking about why women are the leaders we have been waiting for. Why do women make great leaders, and what unique perspectives do they hold that allow them to change the world?
I truly believe that our social conditioning in Western culture is much more empathetic, much more collectivist, much more inclusive of listening, of diversity, of hearing different perspectives. When we think about what is going on internationally, what is happening in the world right now that is kind of heavy on our hearts, when you think about the leaders that are involved, they're men. I just want to like let that sink in. They are not folks at the table, that are talking about things with a collaborative way that we can handle conflict that is not, let's see if we can add more bombs to this solution. I do think that there's something to that. And I do believe that there is a way that we can lead where we are bringing more people in, more men into this equation, more non binary folks into this equation that lifts everyone up, that makes people feel safe to express themselves, and that also makes it safe for people to express emotion. That is not a bad thing in governance. I do believe that actually that can be very healthy. I think there's a lot of, I know this phrase seems to be getting more overused, but toxic masculinity, but just toxic like constraint of emotion. I think it's more toxic constraint of emotion that seems to be going on right now that is hemming in ability to like feel. That seems to be happening, and that is, I think, making it very restrictive for people to be creative about solutions, be creative about ways that we can be compassionate and really see each other. So those are the things I would say. Like when I think about Women's History Month, I know that a lot of people who are lauded and lifted up and celebrated in Women's History Month are the names that you know. And when I think about Women's History Month, when I'm driving around our state, I think about the people in our local communities. I think about our Emerge alum. I think about people who are past and present elected leaders. But I also think about the everyday people whose names I don't yet know, who are showing up at their city council meetings, who are putting their name on the public comment, like sign in sheet and saying, hey, I want to talk to you about this and such. And I feel like those are the people who are literally a part of Women's History Month, who are making it right now, who are making it by listening to this podcast or going to their local community meeting, their neighborhood association, their PTA, and just speaking up. Because I feel like community engagement right now seems to be something that's waning, not increasing. So the more engagement that we have, the better I feel like we're going to be. I think that is history. Like we're continuing to make history in the present moment, second by second. And there are a lot more contributions to be made. So I will say that I think Women's History Month is being made daily.
I could not agree more. That's absolutely incredible. And I want to encompass that with a beautiful quote I found on your city council campaign website. You said, quote, we don't need token representation. We need legit representation. We need diverse representation. We need old and young. We need queer and non-queer, cis and trans, people of color, people with disabilities. We need to see that. And I think women are the people who are going to bring those perspectives. CM Hall, thank you so much for being on Girly Pop Politics. If people want to learn more information about you or Emerge, where can they go?
They want to learn about me. They could go to my campaign website, as you just mentioned, CM Hall for City Hall. And if they want to learn about Emerge, they can go to emergeor.org.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Girly Pop Politics on KMUZ's Willamette Wake Up Show Public Radio.